And we're live. Hello, fellow YouTubers, truth seekers, and Mandela affected. I'm Darkwolf, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this first live stream of Mandela Affectors. We have Magi 728. Want to say hi, Magi?
Yes, hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to have you here, buddy. Really appreciate you joining us here. Cat Idaho, or Mountain Cat as she's now called. Welcome. Glad to have you here. How you doing tonight?
Meow. Doing good.
Excellent. Wonderful to have you here. Next, we have Seeker of Truth. We're so glad to have you here with us tonight. How you doing? Oh, you jumped back on mute. We didn't hear anything. All right.
She trying to unmute.
Okay, we heard something that time. All right, glad to have you with us, Seeker. She seems to be a little busy in the background right this moment. Bob, glad to have you.
She's gonna listen.
Oh, she's just gonna hang out and listen to us. All right. Well, feel free to jump in anytime. Bob, glad to have you here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Wonderful. All right, this is going to be our panel for the evening. I don't think anyone else from our other group over there decided to join us, so glad everybody's joined us on YouTube. Glad hope we're entertaining you, and hope you like what you see. All right, so we are a Mandela Effect group, right, everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Good deal.
That we are.
All right, so Bob, I know we've had Magi on shows before and stuff. How did you come about finding the Mandela effect?
For me, it started with ringing in my ears. It was really unusual for me to get tinnitus overnight. I went to specialists. They found it odd. I'm at the right age to have tinnitus. So I started to dig into things, and just by chance, it popped up. I never paid it much attention. I looked at one or two videos, and it started playing a video of Star Wars, and I was just scanning it, and I didn't understand. I thought it was nonsense. So after a few more videos, I think it was Jacob Israel's videos, it started to get my attention. The Star Wars video, Luke, I'm your father, Life is a Box of Chocolates. These started to, make me question myself, but Interview with a Vampire was quite certain. It was an interview with the vampire. And further I went, I saw that the geography had changed. There was anatomy changes, logos. So it was a progressive discovery.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of how we all kind of start out, a little progressive. For me, the ringing, I didn't really know it was connected until after I found the effect, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate. All right, Cat Idaho, or Mountain Cat, how about you? How did you come about finding the Mandela effect?
Well,
I think I jumped out.
Excuse me. Yay, back. I first heard about it towards the end of May in 2016. And it was everything all at once. When I was told about it, it was like, well, I got the quiz from somebody, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I was down the rabbit hole, of course, looking it all up. And I tend to think it is a wake-up call or reminder that reality is malleable and we can shape it how we want. I think it was a reminder that that is the nature of things. And the next step is to learn how to shape our reality to what we want. And yeah, I think it has a lot to do with vibration.
Vibration and manifestation, things like that.
Frequency and vibration.
You know what? I'm very much down along that line. I really want to come back to this point later on. But I do want to move over to Magi just to finish out this round of questioning. Magi, how did you learn or come about knowing about the Mandela effect for those who haven't caught you on our other live streams over on UniRock's channel?
Actually, I think that I recall the first time was I had come home and made something to eat. And I wasn't even actually watching the TV. I had it on. And Field of Dreams was on. And I heard him say, build it, he will come. And I was like, no, that. And then I checked to see if it was like, you know how the premium channels, sometimes the other channels will cut stuff out. So I thought maybe it was that.
Right, re-editing.
It wasn't on one of the premium channels. It was one with commercials. So I actually looked up that movie and looked for that clip and found, then as soon as I seen that clip, I had seen other people had already experienced it and had some, actually it was a lot of kids at that time just doing the products. It was the first time I heard it. Yes. That was definitely, then I started watching the YouTubes and picking up more and more and more.
And of course, down the rabbit hole you went, just like the rest of us.
Down the rabbit hole I went, yeah. Yes, I did.
So let me ask you on what Kat just said, because I really, really like this myself, but I want your personal opinion. I know that she said there's a lot about frequency and it's about vibration and awakening and manifestation. And again, like I said, I fully back that myself. What do you think?
I kind of agree with that. I think it's a spiritual awakening. You know, like I said back then, even early on, I think it's an early stage. Of course, I see it's progressing, definitely. But yes, definitely I'm on that path and have been for quite a while now. A spiritual awakening.
Right, I fully agree.
Yes, I mean, and I respect everybody's, you know, whatever anyone says, I'm willing to listen.
Right.
And actually consider it too, not just listen. But definitely in, you know, for myself, I sense an awakening, a rebirth.
A rebirth. Nice.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Appreciate that, Magi. All right, Bob, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that topic?
I think that this is a call to assembly. This is like a bullhorn going off, and those who are hearing it are paying attention. They're finding each other and coming together. For me, the ME itself isn't that spectacular as the groups that have been formed. They're very different, in my opinion, than other conspiracy channels. And this Mandela effect has been somehow called a conspiracy, but it's not the same motif as anything else. There are people who aren't resonating properly with the event, in my opinion. I don't have the proper wording for it because I don't want to box the situation.
Right.
But if you get somebody who is so adamant that it has to do with a specific religion or specific sciences, I believe it's a combination of everything. I don't think that it's a singular event. I believe just as how life grew, plants had to get created, then microbial life evolved into insects, and animals, and kept on
Owls.
progressing. Owls as well, especially owls.
Yes.
So, so I believe that a process has led to the Mandela effect, and Mandela effect is only one of the pillars of what's going on in today's world. There's so much aspects that are creating fear and anxiety in individuals, yet there are others who also see beauty and a spiritual connection with the event. For me, it comes down to choosing between love and fear, and I personally choose love, and I see this as a beautiful and wonderful event. It's almost as if something that I've been waiting all my life for it to happen, and I didn't know what it was.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that. That right there, I've found in the entire Mandela Effect community, they're always focused on one thing, and that's love. Mountain Cat, you're really big about that and frequency. Well, what are your thoughts on frequency as far as emotions, love, hate, all that, and how that affects our reality?
Well, I think our emotions are key when we're talking about frequency. Our emotions are kind of the dial in to what frequency you want to be vibrating at. And that vibration dictates what you see and what you experience, because everything is vibration and energy. I know, hard to explain.
I fully agree. You know, before I carry this on down the line, it was snowing today out here, up here in the beautiful Rocky Mountains in an undisclosed location. And it got me to thinking about a test. And I've been sharing this with all my friends here around me, all my new friends I've made since I moved. And it was a test done in 2013 by Dr. Hamasari Emoto. And this test took, I know all of you guys here have heard of this, but for those that haven't, took water and put them in all these different jars. And some of them he wrote love, hate, I will kill you. I know that's dark. This is what the experiment did. It ain't me. He wrote all these different things. Some of them exposed to a child. Some of them he exposed to Beethoven. Others he wrote like Adolf Hitler, or he would say, I hate you too. And ran all these different tests on this water and then froze them and seen what happened. 3-minute YouTube clip where you can see the results of all these different crystals and how they came out. And this is just from the frequency of our thoughts and our words and our emotions being spilled into these things. Magi, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I seen one today on race. I didn't really get the details, but it looked like one said hate, one said love. I actually was just skimming through it, but it looked like some kind of mold or something on the one that said hate. And I would like to check that out a little more. But yes, I definitely think that's a possibility. There's no doubt in my mind.
That was after 13 days. That right. So I'm sorry, Kat. I will definitely let you in right after this. That was after 13 days. The one that said love was just as good as the day it was made. The one that said 13 days later was full of mold on it.
Yes.
Kat, go ahead.
Yes.
As a Reiki practitioner, I can tell you, you can use Reiki. You can send healing energy and love energy to your food, to your water, to literally to your car, you know, so it keeps running well and it starts up in cold weather. You know, I mean, you can send energy where you focus it, and it's all about intention and vibration, and emotions are the thing, is the dial-in, I think, to that frequency. And the higher vibrations of love versus lower vibrations of fear. dictates how your vibration is and what you experience.
Darkwolf on the rice. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kat.
No, you didn't go.
Did they just write love and hate, or did they?
Yeah,
like,
it was just written on a piece of like a
nothing more
sticker.
than just written. Okay.
It was just written on a sticker and labeled across around the jar. And like I said, 13 days later, and he was throwing emotion into it. Like every day he'd go to the one jar and I hate you, I hate you.
That's
I
what I
hate
thought.
you,
Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other one he would intend the love and the hate
Sure.
grew mold. Now I've seen another one done with leaving the water in the rice, and again the hate one grew mold on top where the other one didn't, and then they had a base that they just ignored and didn't do nothing to.
That's very interesting.
Bob, what are your thoughts on this?
I've known about this experiment for a while, including the water crystals. The experiment also has a control sample where it's set aside and neither love or hate is projected on the rice.
Right.
And they found out that the one that has been neglected actually starts decaying more rapidly, more so even than the hate.
Really?
Yeah. This I've seen this in a couple of different experiments where I've followed the experiment going on a daily basis. I think this extends to when people talk to plants, and when plants hear music, they flourish more than the ones that are devoid of the resonance that's being thrown towards them.
I fully agree.
Wow, that's interesting.
We also know how chanting Om creates certain resonance. So it all goes to vibration and how we respond to sound. Gong baths are when you're in presence of gongs being played. Right. And there has been evidence where the red blood cells reconstitute themselves almost instantly when that resonance comes in. And the sound, when it starts to intermix, it starts to sound like whales singing. So I believe that it's the intention that is projecting the vibration of the voice is connected to it, but also it is indicative of it. So our consciousness is enhancing that attribute of vibration. I believe we are enhancing the capacity of what vibrations are capable to do.
So are you thinking that we could be causing this? Certain individuals that would be in the early stages of an embryonic awakening could be causing the whole effect itself. Those that are awake.
I don't know. It's very possible.
Well, I mean, if you can grow mode with intention.
Yes, but again,
well,
I think
we all came together as a collective group. I mean, all of a sudden there, it seemed like it just, and then it domino affected.
Well, let me jump in here real quick since you mentioned that. The HeartMath website, which I'm pretty sure everybody here is aware of, but for those watching who don't know this, heartmath.org, check it out. What they do is they record the Schumann resonance, solar activity, and the Collective Consciousness Project, which set up random number generators all across the world. And when these random number generators hit the same number multiple times, we're finding that it actually is linked directly to the consciousness or global consciousness of humanity itself. So speaking on that, Kat, the Schumann resonance, how is this really really important as far as frequency goes? Are we there, Kat? Somebody's got something on in the background there. Uh-oh.
She jumped up.
All right, Bob, the Schumann resonance. Tell us how that really plays in with the frequency thing.
Well, they've done experiments with the Schumann resonance to create life in a lab.
I'm sorry. To create life in a lab with the resonance?
Yes. Well, they've tried to create life, and they've been successful when the Schumann resonance was available during the experiment. The experiment involves electricity and water, where the water is devoid of any DNA. And Magi, you can help me expand on this. It was that video that we watched. There's a good video on this. I don't have the specifics on hand, but every time the frequency was absent, the experiment failed. But with the resonance, it's been successful.
Yes.
Our consciousness is running on the same frequency as the Earth Schumann resonance. And they've done also experiments where they've put people underground where they couldn't get that vibration, and they exhibited some negative side effects with mood, sleep disorder, throwing out the sleep rhythm. So when they would secretly introduce that frequency underground, everybody would start getting better. And as you know, the frequency of Schumann has been increasing, and it's spiking as high as 120, I've heard. My sources aren't credible, but I've heard it from enough various places to know that it is increasing.
I've seen it spike as high as 140 last Easter, I believe it was.
Right. So that's, to me, is impacting our connection to that resonance, which and would mean that we are getting upgraded.
Yeah.
So with that thought, Magi, do you believe that because of the increased Schumann resonance or the differentials in the Schumann resonance higher than it should or used to be, that we are kind of piggybacking on that and increasing our manifestation abilities? Go with that.
Yeah, I think it works both ways, though. I think it causes a wave. I think some are affected with lethargic. They're lethargic. Some are tired when it happens. Others get a big jolt of anticipation, like feeling, or not quite anxious, more of the anticipation, like waiting. I've experienced both, actually, and I have seen them put the graph out. I don't know how to read it real well, but the others in the room will assist in that. And I've experienced both. I've actually been very lethargic, feeling some days like I was walking through water. That bad. It didn't last long.
Right.
Then get back later from work and find out that it had spiked that day. Other days I've felt all kind of energy, clarity, and a little more contrast even in vision when it's up. So I think the wave works both ways.
I've also experienced a lot as far as the like when it's high, really being highly emotional, highly kind of high strung, really on edge, if you will. And when it's lower, I've realized that, it's more of a soft, easygoing, even a loving, an open loving, harmoniously loving feeling. It's really weird. I've noticed the trends and correlations there myself. Real quick, a little bit of housekeeping here. I do apologize to those on YouTube. I cannot access the chat from the way I'm doing this right now. I'm sure you can chat with anybody else here if they're able to, but I personally can't. So if you're asking questions, I apologize. I'm not being rude. I just can't even see the chat at all. It's not bringing it up for me. So for those out there who are watching, I'm sorry, I'm not able to actually like take your questions. But if the other guys here in the room can call them out and answer them as such, that'd be great. All right. So with that out of the way, back to where we were. Something else, I'd like to change topics for a little bit. So we've been talking about us, Mandela affected. What about those that just aren't affected? Like, here's one question. Should we wake people up? This is a debate I've been having with a couple different people I know. Should we wake people up, or should we let them find it organically? Bob, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I think that we can introduce some of the effects without directly going into Mandela effect. For example, I have a friend of mine who is very knowledgeable on animals, and I showed him a picture of a skunk now. I remember the skunk with a single stripe. Now, it has 2 stripes. When I showed that picture to him, he thought it was photoshopped, and it got a bit curious. The conversation flowed for a little bit, and then after a while he disconnected, and he says, well, I can't do anything about it, I don't care. So in that sense, I wouldn't want to wake people up, but I wouldn't take the opportunity if they came and asked me. So I'm from the mind of having someone ask instead of me trying to promote the event. Having said that, there are different styles for different people, different personalities. So both in conjunction will service all the needs that are out there. So I believe there is a need for some people to go out there and kind of shout it out, not so much for the person they're trying to wake up, but for themselves.
Right. That, yeah, to kind of verify it for yourself, because once you learn it, like oh my God, the world has changed. I've got to tell somebody. I've got to shout it from the rooftops. That's kind of the way I am. I like to wake people up. I like to. I brought up in conversation a near customer of where I work recently, and like they were totally into it. I was talking about maps, and I said, well, do you know much about maps? He said, I'm a topographic specialist. Really? Look at this. And, it was really neat. I'm very blatant about it. What about you, Magi? What are your thoughts? Should we let them sleep, or should we shake them up?
Well, I think if I was going to do it, I wouldn't dunk them. I think I would splash them. Is the way I would put it. Unless maybe you knew the individual really well. I have ran some ideas by a few. Some will see the changes, but not acknowledge. People fairly close to me even. They'll definitely see the changes, though. They will not deny that certain things have changed, but they just seem to go on and don't want to fellowship or talk about it much. If they see something new, they'll bring it to my attention. And that's about it. If I bring it up, they'll talk about it for a minute, but they don't want to sit around and talk for days. I do have a few friends that I've been close with on other spiritual things for years that we would fellowship together. They're much more subject to at least looking at it. But I would say very slowly nurture it. That's just my opinion.
All right. So next question, I'm going to start with you, Magi. Have you had any weird experiences when telling somebody about it?
I wouldn't describe it as weird, just more of a, most of the ones that I would even talk to about are already into some conspiracy theories. They have some trait that I would, conspiracy theory, spiritual, those are the ones that seem to acknowledge at least that it's happened, but go on. The others just kind of shake their head like, you're nuts. And so I'm just being honest. It's the truth.
What about you, Bob? We all keep hearing these stories about people who just kind of go blank and stare off, and and just like you ain't said a word to them. Have you had any experience like that, telling people about it, or anything on?
I had one incident where we were in the emergency with a friend of mine, and he's aware of the Mandela effect, and he had some crystal bead bracelets on, and there was a couple sitting behind us that the girl came and started off a conversation from the beads. From that, we extended to more spiritual topics, and at that point, my friend was taken to get taken care of, and our conversation continued. And at one point, I asked him, "Are you aware of the Mandela effect?" And at that point, the girl reacted so excitedly, I had to move. She had to be calmed down by her boyfriend, and she wanted to pursue the topic more, but the reaction made me want to kind of step away from it because she just got overexcited.
Right. I've not had any weird experiences myself. Most people I've talked to have been pretty open about it, minus maybe one or two. I remember one of them. They told me I was smoking too many drugs at one point. And I finally went up to him and I was like, "Look, I'll tell you what. Do you remember Jiffy peanut butter?" "Oh, yeah, I remember Jiffy." "I'll tell you what. You go find me an original Jiffy logo and I will relent my entire argument." She never did get back to me with that.
Did you see the Fox? I think it was about a month ago. Had just said it was confabulation, but they ran a little clip on Fox News.
Oh, yes, when they did a little short story and had the psychiatrist on there and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Magi. Let me turn that question back at you. What
Sure.
do you think about the whole confabulation thing? I know it's kind of a dirty word in our community.
Yeah, it is, but I do think that it exists. I really do. I don't think it's not confabulation though. With the there's too many. Everybody doesn't see them all, but there's just way too many that we know that one a certain product didn't change where the other one did. And if I would have to guess after a year of this, I would say somewhere in the area of 80% people are agreeing. So nobody's planting thoughts in anybody's head no more. Like the possibility did exist, I guess. So initial confabulation, possibly at the beginning. Those that have experienced it for a year, no. You may have one confabulation now, as opposed to it being the other. And like I'd said many times before, you only need one to start with. If you can find one that you know that changed, and you were 100% sure, you really don't need anything else. I think that's why people fall away from the new ones coming in. They're not interested as much anymore because they know they're coming.
That's interesting. What about you, Bob? What are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I'm working on some in the background here. Go ahead, Bob.
I think there's a lot of confabulation going on. A lot of people, I believe, will quickly jump into an Emmy event where it could really be misremembering. I approached it from believing that I'm misremembering, except it's like Magi said, I found one that I was sure of, and the lion and the lamb was the example, and not religious. And from there, I've got a few other ones that I'm very certain of, and after that, I leave it alone because I don't need to keep getting verification and validation that knowing that the changes are happening. Otherwise, I can drive myself crazy wondering, has this changed or has that changed? I mean, we misremember. There's cognitive dissonance. There's all aspects of our psychology that is prone to being altered. But there are some specific memories that are ingrained. And that's where I got convinced, is that I got 3 or 4 of them where I'm at 100%. and it's slewful that I'm at around 90%. But even at 90%, I will. I don't think that's enough for me to believe that I can't be misremembering it. But when I hear other people talk about the same exact changes and the synchronicities that leads me to hear the changes, whether it's from other people or recommended videos popping up on YouTube for channels I've never seen, and sometimes topics I haven't searched before, it lets me realize that I have to pay attention, that there is something going on, and to make sure to be aware of the event while the event is happening and not afterwards in hindsight.
Can I add something to that? Because I agree with you, Bob, on that.
No.
But, what's that? Oh, well, I'm going to anyway.
Okay.
No, I really do, because I think some of the new people coming in have raked over it too quickly and are bringing confabulation. I do not think the ones that have been in it for a year, even if they're seeing more, and I agree with you, I kind of backed off after, first of all, after I got the 2 or 3 that I was sure with, I was similar to you. I didn't really search out any unless somebody threw them out there. I would glance at a few of them and just make the assumption. And that's what I meant by not wanting people to implant that thought into my head. I found those on my own. I did experience the Field of Dreams one was what got me attracted to it. And I did watch a few, but when I watched them, actually the first one I watched was like a girl just read through 10. It was almost like she was playing a game. And I did relate to those. But after that, I searched the others out that I found as solid ones. Was not from anybody on YouTube or a video. It was actually going back and finding things here. The ones that convinced me. So yes. I do think that my point was the confabulation. I agree with him that it's probably on a large scale, but it's
progressed. I agree with what you're saying, Magi.
Can I give you one example? Is iconic lines were never misread at the Oscars before. I'm sure if you go back and search, then all of a sudden people start talking the Mandela effect, and we go back and get some residue of what Letterman reading both Interview with a Vampire and Life is Like a Box of Chocolates on the same year. You think there would have been a newspaper article the next day saying the host of the Oscars misquotes famous iconic lines?
No, he's just quoting them as we all remember them. All right.
My point is, if they would have done that back in the 60s, I think that may have drew some attention. That these people, my goodness, the host blew the iconic lines. These are iconic lines.
Right.
Yeah, these aren't just the average line.
I want to interject with something a little bit off topic here.
Okay.
My concern always has been, why is it only English-speaking countries that are experiencing the Emmy? And primarily it's been in the US and UK, Western Europe. Why aren't other countries, other logos and texts being changed? That has been one of my curiosities.
Are you sure they are? Or have we not found those people yet?
I've searched out. I'm not saying I've done a complete search, but whoever I spoke to during the first year that I was really investigating the event, nobody seems to know anything outside of the English language. Like, I mean, the logos would be like the Coca-Cola logo and the Kit Kat logo.
Be worldwide.
Right. And one person, the explanation they gave me is that in other languages, if you change characters slightly, it makes a very big difference in the meaning. But when you change S here and there in the English language, was Christopher Reeves becomes Christopher Reeve, it's not that noticeable. Also, I've heard that because of the people who believe the D wave has something to do with it. And because they're getting close to absolute zero, it's getting disconnected from the unified field and is creating the alterations in that manner. And because the D wave is in English speaking languages, that's why it's going that way. None of the explanations are foolproof, but you would, I'm certain that it would be more obvious because we talk to people from all over the world, and we don't get many other people who are from countries that have different scripts coming up and telling us they're seeing the changes.
That's true. Yet. But that's true. I agree.
All right. So what about theories? Is there any theories that you, aside from frequency, of course, we've all discussed, we're pretty sure frequency fits in somewhere. But is there any specific theories? You mentioned D-Wave. I've heard CERN. Is there anything you point to directly, starting with Magi?
No, it could be a combination of all of them. I think that's a possibility. If it's not just a spiritual thing coming from infinity, I think it's, which I think it is. But if I had to run back through, there may be even, they may be interfering with the natural process. I think there was a shift in 2012. The age of Aquarius, everyone was talking about the shift coming, and of course you had, some people were making it very dark. But with things like HARP and any chemtrails whatsoever, CERN, of course, anything like that, and certain things we may know nothing about that would cause any wave or, I think it would either enhance it or slow it down, one or the other.
Pat just mentioned there's somebody that we have where in Belgium, mirror is still mirror.
Interesting.
But again, I'm not sure if it's on the Belgian or in Belgian language or not. I think it has been dubbed in Belgium.
Well, here's the thing I have about Mirror and Magic Mirror. This is why this one bothers me as an ME. Okay, so the original Grimm's fairy tale was Mirror. Now, the Disney adaptation made it Magic Mirror. That was only an adaptation of the original tale. So the original, if you go back and look in Grimm, still says Mirror.
But then that could be confabulation. That's a possibility. I don't know that story that well. I'm just saying.
I think that's where Hollywood has kind of messed with us.
Yes.
And we were taught the story in the book is Mirror, and then we're watching the movie and we expect her to say it. So as kids, it don't really click. She didn't say it. Right. It's what I think is going on personally with that.
I agree, but Darkwolf, I've heard, and I don't know that story that well, so I cannot add to that at all. Excuse me. But I do know that when I had brought up some of the Bible changes, and I did pull away and read myself, because like I said, I didn't want it in thoughts implanted. And I seen some that, I would have swore I would have bet money on. I'm glad I'm not a gambler, because I would have lost a lot of money. And I did know those scriptures. And I had people saying, oh, it's this version and it's that version. You're confusing. Well, I never read those versions. And I always stuck to the lexicon, to the 1611. And anytime I ever referenced, I don't know if others knew it, but I was always referencing only the lexicon changed. We already know that the new internationals, they already changed on their own. No machine had to do it. They write it in much more English-friendly ways. You see what I'm saying? But when I seen "Judge not, lest you be judged" is not in none. It's not in any of the versions. I can't find it in the New International Version, which I've never read, but I went looking for it.
Right.
So that one's been completely
none of the multiple
removed.
Translations have it then.
Yes, but you can go back and watch residue of pastor standing at the podium reading Matthew 7:1, I believe it is, and saying, "Judge not, lest you be judged." And there's shows about "Judge not, lest you be judged," and you can just go back and find residue after residue after residue. Now,
Right. All
a
right.
lot
Now, I
of,
don't
well,
want
what I
to
was going to say is a lot of the explanations are, well, that was in the King James International Version. And I did go back and look. I never read them, and some of them were wineskins is now in the English friendly, and bottles is in the old lexicon 1611, which seems like it would be the other way around. If you're going to write a book to make it more English friendly, then you would make it more English friendly, I would assume. And
All right. Well, without going down the religious rabbit hole,
yeah, I
without,
understand.
I'm trying to stay neutral religious, but
Well, we're just
why?
saying that people pushed off and said it was me mistaking other versions, but I never read those versions.
I completely understand what you mean, because all
Yes.
my work I do is based on the 1611. I rarely even look at the other lexicons just so I can stay, make sure I don't get confused of what I read where.
When you're talking about waking people up, yes, I have mentioned that one to people that are pastors, and yes, it shakes them because they definitely remember it being judged, not at least you be judged. These aren't people that'll sit around and talk about the effect, but they know that changed.
Right. Let me broaden out the question a little bit. And I'm going to go to you real quick, Bob, since me and Magi have been sitting here kind of rambling it out for a minute. Why do you think the Bible specifically, well, like we haven't seen the Quran as I've heard reported so far. We haven't seen the Kabbalah. We haven't seen any of these other books change. Yet we're seeing the Bible change. Is there any reason why you think this should be? Starting with Bob.
I really don't. It's a very important and relevant change. I cannot speculate on it, though.
All right. How about you, Magi? Why do you think the Bible itself would change opposed to, say, any other religious text?
Well, again, that's my point, Darkwolf. It's only the 1611. And I do know that in times that Catholics, which do not use the King James 1611, they use Jerome's version in other versions. That is supposed to be like the universal. They came to an agreement that when they were doing certain religious missionaries and stuff, that was fine to pass out a King James version. But they came to an agreement that was close enough to Jerome's version for the Catholic Church, and obviously for the Protestants, to, if you're at a missionary, to pass out, for Catholics to pass out King James versions.
Right.
I do remember that in childhood at CCD in Bible study. It was fine for us to have a King James version, but no other version. Either that or the Jerome's version or other Catholic versions. So I think that one's being attacked. It's the universal one. It's the one that they come together on.
The 1611 is a really interesting version, isn't it? Even if you study the history of how it actually came to be to begin with.
Yes, exactly.
It's got a really, really interesting history behind it. And it is one of the most accepted across the world. So
that's what I'm saying. Exactly. It's the universal one. Yes.
So I'd like to switch topics again. There was a news story. This is way un-Mandela effect as far as I know. But there was a recent news story that I guess you verified for me earlier, Mr. Magi. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Manson, for those who don't know, has passed away. I don't know how old he was, but I know he spent most of his life in prison. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
Go ahead, Bob.
I haven't followed him. He never really fascinated me, so I couldn't tell either way.
I just know I seen it this morning. I was fairly young when all that took place. I recall hearing the Tate LaBianca while I was probably playing with toys. But no, I think, it was the 60s. I've been in prison all his life. I never really seen a whole lot of special ability there. It just seemed like the drugs and the, he's a lot older than, I think a lot of people don't know that. He was probably in his 30s. The kids were probably 16, 17. So easily manipulated, especially coming out of Haight-Ashbury and the Summer of Love and all that madness, I don't think a whole lot of anything. I don't think it's justice to the family, if that's what you're asking me.
Gotcha.
That's about it on him.
Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about him myself either. I know the story and I know basically, what happened according to the news and all that, but it was before my time. I know that it was one of the craziest, like, they blamed it on a song. They killed a bunch of people and blamed it on a song that nobody understood the words to begin with. But that's all I really knew about it too. But it is a top news story, so I figured I'd drop it in and,
Well, yeah, it is. He is. I mean, there's no doubting his childhood was warped. I mean, he spent even his childhood in reform schools. I recall that much. So.
Gotcha. Well, the audience is requesting a topic change, and I don't blame them. I didn't really want to.
Yeah, really. That was
top news, so figured I'd drop it in real quick. Any questions that you have for me, Magi?
No, not right offhand.
All right, Bob, any questions?
You hit me with that pretty quick.
I'm running out of stuff to talk about. I really am. I'm trying to formulate topics.
That's okay. That's okay.
What I want to know is, which is more important to you? Figuring out the causality or the effect of the Mandela effect? By that I mean, do you want to figure out what is causing it, or more interested in seeing what its intention is?
So I think one will answer the other, honestly. I've always been a why guy. Always, always, always. Why is this happening? What's going on? Why did this do that? I've always been a why guy. So when I found the Mandela effect, it wasn't, oh my God, it wasn't the world's changing. I didn't ball up and shake. And to those who did, I get it. I totally get it. I'm not picking on anybody. But I personally went, wow, what is this? Holy cow, something new. Something I can jump on board and maybe figure out. So ever since then, I've been trying to figure out the why. I think if we figure out the why, that will answer the intent. Because this, okay, well, that's either negative or positive intent. At that point, we'll figure it out.
But what if it's something as organic as life? Why is life here?
Like a natural process? Well,
I'm sorry?
Like we're going through a natural process?
I believe this is a natural process.
Sure, yeah, I agree. That's what I was asking. That's a good question.
Well, here's a funny thing, because years before the Mandela effect dropped, it was about maybe 09, I'd say 07, 08. I remember, and I've testified this a couple times in my videos, I've grew up with these people. I've known these people inside now, upside down, backwards and forwards. I know everything about them. Their personalities are locked in. I know who they are. You know what I mean? These are my people. All of a sudden, it's like I woke up and their personalities all took a shift. Everybody had a different personality, had everybody else's personality. And I thought I was going crazy. It's just like I woke up in a parallel universe. And oh, ha, ha, yeah, real funny, whatever. I was always a conspiracist anyway. Wasn't really strange. I was spouting weird shit. So and that was firecrackers going on, or fireworks going off behind me, by the way. Year later, one of my buddies came up to me and goes, "Man, can I tell you something?" Well, yeah, you can tell me anything. It's like I woke up today and it's like I woke up in a parallel universe. Everybody's personality is suddenly changed. It's like, dude, I told you this a year ago. You can calculate that happening. About 4 years later, I found the Mandela effect. 4 or 5 years later, somewhere in there. So it didn't click at first, but I think that was probably one of my first instances where I realized something shifted. Something wasn't right. And that's one reason I'm kind of on with the sliders theory. It's not my favorite. I'm going to lie. It's not my favorite theory. The whole, I've seen shifts in personality. Have you guys experienced this, shifts in people's personality around you personally?
Yeah, a little bit. I did too, if you're talking about 4 or 5 years ago, which would have been, right after 2012. That's when I was feeling it, yes.
That would have been around 2012 at that point.
Yeah, both of us would have been feeling about the same thing. Yes, not extremely, but yes, definitely. And people very close to me. Yes, I'm not afraid to say that. And probably myself too, for that matter. I'm sure I was reacting differently. A lot of things changed that prayer after that year. Right at that year, actually. A big shift for me.
Right.
Now that you asked me, yeah.
But what about you, Bob? Have you experienced people's personalities around you suddenly just take a shift?
I move around a lot, and I come back to home base quite often. I'm not certain if the changes are because of the ME or if it's just that a natural change that
Your absence.
people have gone through. But I've had a couple of extremely close friends that are alienated with me right now. And I haven't discussed much of the ME with them. But I have a different perspective on that question. I think this is a good question. I have noticed that a lot of people I've met, especially people that are older, around my age, that they've been experiencing similar things to Mandela effect from a very long time. I've personally have seen oddities as I was growing up, and for me, it was a natural thing. I am of the belief that this is the dream reality, and when we dream, that's the real reality that we come from. So
Right.
these people,
Apparently life is but a dream.
yes. So I think this is just the natural evolution of our species. If you take a bell curve and you take the right side that is progressing to higher consciousness, there's always going to be the few that will get exposed to the new territory before the others. And I'm not saying that they hold any advantage or any form of superiority to the rest. It's just that
Right.
some raindrops fall to the ground first before the others follow. So
well, let me stop you right there, Bob.
you did.
Pat on the back displayed a question, and she kind of took the reverse idea of this. What if their personalities didn't shift? And I'm going to start back with you, Bob. What if shifted or expanded?
I don't see a distinction between the two. Our personality is a representation of our perception.
Yes, good point. I agree.
Our reality is as we perceive it.
It wouldn't be either or. It just is. That's a great point.
And you agree with that, Magi?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, it would be.
All
It
right,
would be
well,
either
that
or.
went nowhere quick. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just. It was a great point. Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree.
the question's fine, and I see what she's saying, but I agree with him. It doesn't matter. It's just from looking from two different angles.
That's
You're
true.
looking at the
That's
same
true.
thing. Yeah.
So, and it could be both. Could be our perception of their shift. Like that's really
Well, yeah. I mean,
than
we could have
that.
just as easily shifted. That's what I meant, as opposed to, but either or,
Right.
it's really the same thing. Just looking from two different places. Yes.
Fair enough. All right. Dead GBK said, and I like this question a lot because, again, back to the whys. Do you guys think that it could be the Mandela effect could be an awakening or effect of something much, much, much bigger?
Absolutely.
Magi. Yeah. Or starting with Bob, then go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Magi, I want to hear what Magi has to say.
Magi, go ahead.
Yes, I definitely think it is. I mean, I've concluded that it's a spiritual awakening or rebirth. I don't like the labels. It's just, we're finding out who we really are. I think it's going to be a process. I think some people are quicker at catching, where they're at and can focus better. I don't think it has anything to do with anything like Bob said either. No more than the raindrop sitting. That was a perfect way of putting it. Now that he mentioned the biological, I still would see that as a spiritual thing too. I think I would see it from the whole thing as a spiritual
A spiritual awakening, you
Yeah,
think
if
it's
the
just
body's even if the body's changing, yes, it wouldn't. To me, it would still be a whole spiritual awakening. So we're going to have body change, everything. Everything change.
that sound, and the awakening is a really, really popular idea, and it goes back to the frequency once again with the
Yes,
whole
that's right.
awakening and new frequencies and frequencies wakening up and all
Oh,
that. Bob, what do you think?
I think that the Mandela effect is just like when you get the ringing in the classroom and it's time to change class and go to a different classroom. Uh, in conjunction to that, it reminds me of the period where um, the religion of the time went and gathered all the so-called druids and the mysticals and the shamans and uh, all that non-religious, non-controlling individuals and killed them. It was almost a culling. And
Mhm.
since then, and that's when the divine feminine was also suppressed. And since then, um, uh, people who have gifts either are medicated or they're shunned, and they're basically hiding in the closet. So the Mandela effect for me was a sign that says it's okay to come out of hiding and express what you're experiencing, no matter how crazy it sounds. Because in reality, what we consider is crazy is the lack of ability to express something that is unexpressible. When people have a majority that agree and the consensus is that this is how something is and this is what reality is, then we're agreeing to that consensus. Well, reality is something we have no idea what it is. I mean, anybody who wakes up and doesn't go, holy cow, where the hell am I? I mean, can you
Yeah.
tell me what this reality is? How would something like this come to be? And we go into the process of trying to figure it out. And I don't care what kind of science that is applied, because science is progressive. What we discover today is going to be false in the way pace is going in a few decades. So for me, it's bringing out the spiritual aspect of humanity to the forefront, instead of it being a control mechanism. Everything is based on control, including how we interact, which is a zero-sum game methodology. Somebody has to lose for somebody to win. And in reality, this is a universe of abundance, and all we have to do is work in synergy and tandem and have a win-win scenario.
Right. Go ahead, Magi.
Yeah, well said. I think that's true. I don't think it should be competitive in nature. That's what I mean. The ones that obviously somebody woke up to something. We're in a group. We're all drawn together. Like you said, we don't see everything exactly the same. But I mean, the calling's already been, the shout's already been made, and we're already finding each other.
If you would say that this community has one trait in common all the way through the community, what would you say it is?
I was just mentioning that today. Actually, I found a couple. And I don't know what anyone will think of these. Well, first of all, I think the people that were already into some type of either conspiracy, spirituality, even religion to a certain extent, because we see those that come from that are confused in the religious, no matter which ones, in certain cases. That is the first thing I seen. Then I did look a little deeper, and actually I mentioned it today. Seeing the gamers is a big one. No matter how old you are, it seems those that played the games, because I tried eyes, what color, just when you're experiencing it. I don't do it so much more today, but it did hit me the other day on the gaming. because a lot of new people are starting to come in and they're gamers. I gamed, even though I'm older, much older, but I did game, and I did quit for a while, but I'm not sure. Is there something in the gaming or the VR or even the Xbox that's it's clicked? You know, you get in there and you're talking to people and you're interacting, kind of like we do here.
So everybody's got at least a background in religious or paranormal studies,
Yes.
and is open-minded to the
UFOs,
idea.
yeah, any spirituality. I've seen some very spiritual people I've run across that just seem to be, from that perspective, very religious. I mean, they were like into that one mode of that, but still they were into that, at least paranormal, like you said, UFOs, conspiracies. It seemed that calling, like Bob, I don't know if he meant this exactly, was calling for us to come out of a, you know, a lot of people that are conspiracy can only talk to certain people, or people will think they're, you know how it goes. I mean, I ain't gonna tell you guys. Or if you talk about UFOs, or if you talk about spirituality, or if you talk about religion, we do have, I see that as the foundation connection, definitely. The others
All
are
right.
just, the others are just even more.
Let me go ahead and turn this on Bob now. If you could choose one thing that the entire community all has in common, what would you say it is?
Compassion.
Yes.
Passion.
That's
Okay.
Yep. I agree.
So I'll expand on that. I noticed when I first came into the community, everybody was so welcoming. It was like being home. They were all studied and learned in the same topics I knew. Very conspiracy, open-minded to an alternative truth. That's something I've noticed. But the main thing I've found in our entire community is the empath. Every single one of us, I don't care if it's brand new or been here a while, everyone is empath. Everyone and everyone. And if I've misspoken, somebody in chat who's not, please let me know. But
I agree with that totally.
and I think that goes into the compassion and why we're so compassionate, because we understand those emotions. We understand what it's like to not be compassionate or have it.
I mean, if you look at the message of Christ, and again, I'm not getting to the religious aspect of it, but when he said, treat others as you would want to be treated, that's it. That's all we need. And that's what empaths are more in tune with, because they can feel the pain of others. They can feel the pain of the world. And this has been a very huge burden on all of us, where a silent sadness has infiltrated our core.
Yes.
And although we're optimists, although we're positive people, there is that burden of why? Why are you doing this to another human being? And that feeling of helplessness, of we want to do something, we want to be service to others, yet we feel at a loss. Now, my personal view is that everything is vibration. We're vibration and repeaters of vibration. So I believe once we become unified, and once we got to see that there's so many of us out here, I had no idea. I mean, I suspected there was people out there that's similar, right, but I had no idea to what extent. So this is amassing, and we have to realize that if we want to look at the history of our species, one lifetime is nothing. So what is coming behind us, the new generation, the people that are getting born today, they are coming in already activated, and people behind us are starting to lay the foundation and groundwork where it's going to be unacceptable for people to treat others the way we are doing now. Not only people, but animals. I mean, when we realize the cruelty that we're suppressing animals with, and the torture and the pain that is being inflicted on them. And if we believe in vibration and karma, to what goes around comes around, we're consuming all that pain and grief. So a big part of it is dietary, because we are what we eat, and that's a very profound yet neglected phrase. I've changed my dietary habits purely because of this awareness, and I'm not promoting this onto anybody else. I just want to make people to consider that what we consume is changing us genetically.
I fully agree with that. And recently, I've changed my diet up a lot, and it's all been my choice. It really has. I went from meat to more of a vegan diet, more of a vegetarian diet. I'm not sure. So I think somebody's knocking on my door. I'm not sure.
Those things happen.
All right, I think it might be across the hall from me. Anyway, I recently switched my diet up too, and it's amazing the difference in how you feel. And it's funny because I ate a piece of meat the other day, and all of a sudden I got sick, and I think it was just a flu virus or stomach virus I got at the same time. But it was really funny how, the timing of it. It was kind of like God saying, "Yeah, you just messed up. Try it again, buddy." So, or creator or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's funny you should mention that. Now let me ask you. I just thought about something really off the cuff. So here's an idea. Well, the Mandela Effect community has been growing and growing and growing for at least 2 years now since I've been in it. And in the last couple months, we've seen I'd say last year, we've seen a large change in the political structure in the planet. It's like the globalists are starting to fall. Like that mindset that's been running things is being defeated. So starting with Magi, do you think that the ME community coming together and all this energy and positive energy is kind of affecting the world stage, if you will? I know that's kind of conceited, but
No, actually, I agree. Because I think if this is a spiritual thing, that it would make those kind of that kind of a reality. I mean, it would bring the veil down. I think. I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be a domino effect, but not just what we're seeing. These are the early stages of the veil coming completely down. I think with high technologies that they've kept back, I'm not going to pull no punches, to some of the things we're seeing right now. Yeah, a domino effect on the way. I really believe that. It's not going to stop. The veil will just keep coming down.
And I kept thinking about that when I was asking that question a minute ago. Bob, what do you think?
Well, that's why I think it's spiritual. It can't be stopped. It's spiritual. It's the spiritual progression of it.
I think a lot of it is spiritual. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's why it can't be stopped.
Bob, do you think because of the major group that's coming together of the Mandela Effect community and all of our energies and positive energies and compassion being presented out there and all the experiments we've been running with manifestation, do you think we're actually having a global scaled effect?
Minus the manifestation, absolutely. Low vibration cannot persist in presence of high vibration and vice versa. However, I want to point out, we've got 7 billion people on the planet. The logistics of maintaining this kind of populace is horrendous. It needs a head. It needs that so-called elite. The whole Freemasonry, the Illuminati, it started presenting itself to protect us against religion. Religion, which was stopping us from questioning, religion which wanted blind obedience. Now, that's how it initially started, but throughout the years, it's gotten corrupted. It's the best model we had, and it was a centralized model. Now, looking at even computer systems, we're finding the weakness in the centralized system is that if the system gets infected, the entire distribution network will also get infected. So we're transitioning to a distributed model. So in future, I believe the answer to our humanity is, localize the communities that propagate on top of each other with representatives that have the best interest of everybody in mind. So we will start growing our food locally. We will start addressing our needs immediate to our proximity, and start out from there. While right now it's top to bottom approach, it's going to become a more of a horizontal structure.
Good point. I agree.
And we are helping with that because we're distributed all over the place.
Now, I like that you brought that up. That kind of goes into the intentional community idea. What are your final thoughts on that there, Magi? And tell me, what do you think about intentional communities too, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think they're on the way. I think people need to assemble personally within their self first. I know it's been tried before, and I think, and this is just an opinion, and from watching certain groups fall apart back from the 70s, and there was some really good, the farm was one, you can look at that one. I believe it's still going on, but it faded. Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. I'm older. I may not witness that, but yeah, those coming behind me, I see it coming. Growing their own food, everything localized. Enough people start doing it, it'll take the money away from those. And I think we're going to have some big breakthroughs too. Maybe some 0-point energy. This is what I mean by the veil coming down. If those things happen in tandem, it's going to be a huge shift. And
for those who don't know what the intentional communities are, look into a guy named Michael Tellinger and the Ubuntu movement. That's just one example of intentional communities. That's not the only example by any means, but that'll give you a good idea for the viewers of exactly what's going on for those who don't know. Bob, you're the one that kind of started this. Intentional communities, do you think we're all headed down that path organically then?
I think it's the only path that will allow us to survive.
Yeah,
if we don't go down that road, we're going to destroy ourselves.
I agree. That's a great point, Bob. It's the only thing that will sustain us, and I think that'll also bring attention to those, even maybe with bad intent. They're going to see that it's unsustainable. I think they already know.
I agree. And I think if we get even a couple of these communities up and running and just show how sustainable they really are, it's going to take over what's going on right now. And you're going to have more and more people, and I hate to say this because I sound like such a hypocrite, I've just switched over to the vegetarian's lifestyle. So I know for those meat eaters, I apologize. I'm not hounding on you. But the GMOs is what I'm going to talk about. Eventually, the GMOs are going to get to the point where if it's true what they say about them, we're going to have mass die-offs, and only ones left are going to be the ones who have went anti-GMO. Do you think this could be an issue in the future with the GMO stock, like killing people off majorly? Either one.
No, I think it would be more, maybe that's why our bodies are changing. Probably they're adapting to the toxins, going to be able to take on the toxins. Like I said, I'm old here. I'm the ancient one. I probably won't live to see this, but I think the human body has a way to adapt anyway. And now we're seeing actual changes. If you're going to ask it that way, I would say that would probably be the reasons you're seeing the changes, to take on the new toxins, to be able to, because the GMOs were also out there to make sure that the people that were starving, and I know there's still people starving, I think it probably started out with good intent and ended up not so good. But
I apologize, Bob.
I think the body may adapt to that.
I apologize. I'm not skipping you, Bob, but I want to re-ask this question to Magi. So are you suggesting that the GMOs are causing the Mandela effect body changes and not the Mandela effect?
No, I think this is all happening like he said.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
We went through a change of some kind, I believe in 2012, and I think at other times. But yes, I think when we start seeing the body changes, to me would be more preparation for taking on the toxins. The toxins have already been in there. I think most seeds have probably been infected. Even if you do grow organic, the bees pollinated the other plants. It's probably not as potent in those, but I'm not sure we even have old seeds anymore.
I'm sure you can find, I know around here you can find old seeds, and the only way I think we could keep the GMOs out would have to be greenhouse growing.
To continue it, yes, if there's any out there. Because I did hear calling, I don't know if this is true, they were trying to buy up the old seeds.
I don't doubt that a lick, and they're probably trying to put them in the Alaskan seed bank.
Yeah, they were trying to, what would you call it? Like have a patent where you couldn't get seed unless it was GMO. But I do believe that the bee still pollinates the organic crop though. If it's over to GMO, it's transferring, and that's been going on for quite a while now.
Right, because you've had companies come in and say that's GMO because he got crossbreeded. Bob, what do you think on the whole GMO thing? Could it be changing our DNA, or we know it's changing our DNA? Could it be changing us physically? Could that be part of the Mandela effect that's getting mistaken, maybe?
I've been listening to Alan Watts, and he speaks on a single event where, for example, when you have a half circle, you've created a concave and a convex at the same time. It depends where you're looking at. There's also evidence of macroevolution in species. I don't want to get into the whole evolution thing. I don't care either way. But there have been records where species have made rapid changes to adapt to their environment.
Yes.
Now, if we look at this as a holographic universe, the changes that happen, whatever triggers them, it could be coming from all different directions, as Magi says. It could be coming from the spiritual side with the ME. It could be coming from the GMOs, from the toxins. I mean, look at the size of our liver right now. Look at the shape of our intestines. Look where our kidneys are right now. These are all our filtration organs that have had significant changes. And again, we are what we eat. The food we eat, it ends up changing us at a genetic level. So absolutely, I think it's all in concord. There are it's a single event, and we're experiencing the event from a point of consciousness and not from a physicality.
That makes sense.
Yes, very good.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and round this out. This has been the first live stream we've done, and I think it's went really, really well. I'd really like to thank my guests, Magi and Bob, for hanging out with us. Bob, do you have a website or a YouTube or any other way to get out there for people to see your work, or do you have anything like that?
Negative.
All right. Well, if you decide to do one in the future, definitely let us know and we'll promote it for you. Magi, what about you? Do you have a YouTube channel you like to promote, or a website, or any words out there, final words?
I do have a channel, Magi728. I'll just throw some things together as a hobby.
And what are you doing there? Do you use the Mandela effect, or do you just random?
Not really. They're more of a spiritual outlook on things, the way I see things, and it's more of a hobby. Whoever sees it, sees it. But yeah, I do have a channel.
Well, you guys make sure you go over there and check out Magi's channel. We're really glad he joined us tonight. Also, don't think I missed it in the chat. UniRock in the Uni Uprising come over and love bombed us earlier. We're so glad you guys did that. We really appreciate that. So I did miss it. We really appreciate the love bomb, guys. This was a very impromptu show. For those who are wondering, the person who's been sitting there all quietly is Secret Truth over here in our chat. She's been sitting here observing and listening, make sure everything goes smooth, and let me know if it screws up. So we really appreciate you, Seeker. Everybody for being here. Thank you to my guests, Magi, BobBant.
Thanks for having us on, Darkwolf. Thanks for having us on, brother.
Definitely, guys, look forward to more of these. We're going to try to schedule them more frequent, more often, and hope you guys join us again. Thanks, everybody, and remember always, stay awake, but dare to dream. Bye, everybody.
Bye.